Hi, folks. We'll be starting in about 4 or 5 minutes. Thank you for joining. Hi, folks. We'll be starting in about 3.5 minutes. Thank you for joining. Hey, folks. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Thanks for your patience. Hi, folks. We'll be going live in 1 or 2 minutes.
A massive lag.
Okay, we'll be kicking off here just in 1 minute. If you want to get started ahead of time, please take a look at this document. This is the document we'll be following together. And you can access the doc at this URL, bit.ly/testinggenai. And I will put that in the various chats that we have here as well. And yeah, so hopefully everyone can hear and see what we're doing clearly here.
Recording in progress.
So what we will be doing is we're going to go through a workshop that everyone can follow along with at home, or you're very welcome to just sit back and watch. It's up to you whether you want to try this yourself, but it is all possible to run through this yourself by following along with this document. And the other point is that by following along with this document, the first thing that you'll do is to go and grab a virtual machine, which we will provision for you. So we offer that virtual machine free of charge. And then we're happy for you to use it for like a week or so after the event. And then if you just want to drop us a note, if you want to extend that, then we're happy to have a chat. Yeah, without further ado, I will kick this off. Yeah, the very first thing to do is to go ahead and grab one of those virtual machine instances. So if you go to deploy.helix.ml, you can just click the link in the document. Then you will see an interface that looks a little bit like this. And using this, well, actually, I'll show you the logged out state. So the first thing, when you follow that link, you'll see this Helix Launchpad. So you need to log in or register. There's two ways of doing that. The best way of doing that is to click the Google button if you have a Google account, because then you can just go straight in with like your personal Gmail account or your work account or whatever. You can also register for an account by clicking this register button. When you do that, you need to wait for an email to arrive to confirm the account. And that's why I say it's better to do the Google option. But yeah, you can also register for like a new account here and then do the password confirmation email.
Hey, Luke.
Yep.
You're not sharing your screen in the Zoom.
Thank you. That's extremely helpful. So I will do that now. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so sorry to Zoom people, but hang on, did that stop? Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, where were we? So just for the Zoom people, what we're doing is we're following through this document. You can access the doc at bit.ly/testinggenai. And the first step in the doc is in the workshop is to go and grab an instance. So you'll click this link to deploy.helix.ml and you'll access our Launchpad. The Launchpad is a way to provision virtual machines automatically that we provide. And like I said, you're welcome to keep the VM for a week or so after this session. So just hit login register, and then I recommend signing in via Google, or alternatively, you can register just with an email address, and then you can confirm an email. There'll be a link sent to you in an email to activate your account. So once you're logged in, you'll see a really simple interface like this, where you can create a new Helix deployment. Helix is the tool that we're going to use today for building and testing GenAI apps using LLMs. And so the first thing to do is to create your own private deployment of this. The nice thing about Helix, by the way, is that you can run it on your own infrastructure. So you can even install it on your own laptop, or you can deploy it on whatever DevOps infrastructure you have. So you could deploy it on AWS, or you could deploy it on a local OpenShift cluster that you might have with your own GPUs and things like this. And it's a kind of full alternative to OpenAI that you can run locally. So let's go ahead and create a deployment. I'm going to call this one Workshop. You can call yours whatever you like. So you hit that button. It's going to spin up a new Workshop instance. You see a little flash of a terminal there, as you can see the things all spinning up. And then you can click the Launch UI button. And that will drop you into this view where you can see this is your own private Helix deployment at this IP address. And then you can log in and do interesting things here. So yeah, then let's see what we're going to do. So before I jump into the workshop proper, everyone should go and get themselves an instance on the Launchpad. If you have any trouble or any issues during this workshop, then feel free to join the Helix channel on the MLOps community, or you can join our Discord, which is this bit.ly/Helix Discord link, and we're happy to help people out on the Discord channel. So we've gone through this process of getting an instance, and so what we need to do now is, for that instance has its own dedicated user database. So we need to go and create a new user in that deployment. And so we can do that by clicking register here. And for this one, you'll have to use the email registration, but also email validation is turned off. So you can just log in, you can register straight away and then just log in with the email you set. So yeah, now I'm logged in. In this tool, when you get your own deployment, every user is an admin user by default. So as a new user on your own system, you are an admin kind of out of the box. That means you have access to the dashboard. You can see LLM calls that are logged in the system and so on. And if you want to lock that down later, there's a page in our documentation on how to lock down access control to a certain group of users. So yeah, let's see what can we do with this stack. So we've registered. So let's to begin with, we can see, well, you can use Helix just as a sort of private alternative to ChatGPT. So here you can see we're talking to a Llama 3.1 model, and we can say, tell me a joke. And it will go away and tell the same joke it always tells me, which is something about dogs and cats. And it also automatically names the session based on the context, the content of the session. So, I mean, that's fine, and it's quite useful just to be able to give internal team members access to a private ChatGPT, which doesn't leak your data. And we already have customers finding just this kind of private ChatGPT capability quite useful. But the real power of Helix is when it comes to setting up apps. And so an app in Helix is a lot like if you've ever used the GPTs feature in ChatGPT. You can configure your own deployment that is you can configure your own application that has prompts and knowledge and is able to make API calls. So you can do that with a system now that's running entirely on your own infrastructure. So if we go and set up an app, the first thing you can do is you can go to the home page, and then you can click AI powered apps, bottom right, and then you can click new app, and this gives you the view that you can see the apps that you can create here in the system. So the first one I'll create, I'll call, I'll say just hello. Actually, the first app I'm going to create is a comedian. So I'm going to make an app that always tells jokes. And we can give it a prompt like, you are funny, which goes into the instructions. And that's where you kind of tell the app what to do, how it behaves, what it should avoid doing. And then you can hit save. And then you can say, hey, to the comedian. And it chats to me kind of in a friendly way. But what I might want is that I want this app to always tell me a joke. So what we can do in a minute is show how we can write a test for how you can always have the application tell a joke, and then you can check that test is passing. by running kind of an automated. Sorry, I just need to mute some people who are on the Zoom. So yeah, the next thing that you can do with Helix apps is you can do RAG. So what you can do here is if you follow this link in the workshop document, then you can go and download this. You can download this PDF, for example, onto your computer. And then we can show how we can use Helix to have a conversation with an LLM about that PDF. So I'll call this the Helix Prospectus app. And then what you can do there is hit save and then go into knowledge. And you can add a new knowledge source with files. You then need to give that knowledge source a name. So we're going to call it PDFs. It's kind of just like a name for the collection of files. And then you can upload files like this by clicking on the drop zone. And you can upload that file. You can hit save. And then as soon as you hit save there, you'll find that it starts indexing those uploaded files. And now they're ready. So now you can have questions about it. You can have a conversation about it. So you can say, what is the document about? And it tells you. You can say, let's ask a question about the document. Like, what are the problems that Helix sets out to solve? And yes, it pulls out those same bullet points that I was hoping it would out of this sort of slide 3 here. So I mean, that's pretty cool. You can take any PDF or Word document or anything that you have, and you can set up a chatbot with that knowledge pretty easily. And then the next kind of more interesting thing you can do is that you can integrate that language model with an API. So in particular, you might have an API that you can use to query exchange rates. Now, we can create an app called Exchange Rates. And then you might say, what is the current USD to GBP rate? And well, that doesn't work yet because we haven't plugged it in to an API. So let's do that. If you go to integrations and you add an API tool, then you can either integrate with your own Swagger spec here for any old API, or you can just use some of our examples. And we have exchange rates as kind of the first example. So you just pick that exchange rates API, and then you can see this is teaching the LLM kind of how to call that API on behalf of the user. And then it's got this open API spec in there, and that determines exactly what the different API calls that you could make to that API are. So that's kind of teaching the LLM how to make API calls. And so now that we've got the API calls plugged in, we can ask that question again: what is the current US dollar to GBP rate? And it will work. It will actually go and make that API call, and that's pretty good. So yeah, those are the different things you can do in terms of apps. But this workshop is all about testing GenAI apps. So it's all very well to be able to go in and create these, but what if we want to be able to reliably test them over and over again, and maybe do that kind of in the context of a CI pipeline like you would with normal software. So the way to do that is to start by installing the Helix CLI, because testing is available currently through the Helix test command in our CLI. So the way to do that is to go into your Helix installation, go to your account and API page, and then you can install the CLI by running this command. So I'm going to go ahead and run that command here. It's going to tell me what it does before it does it, and I'm going to say yes, please do install the CLI on my computer. And that worked. So then what we can do is we can copy and paste the authentication credentials, which is an API key. And then we can just do things like Helix app ls. And you can see those 3 apps that we made earlier show up in this list. So you can see that the Helix CLI is connected to that Helix deployment. So next up, let's actually start testing one of these apps. Oh, and by the way, if you're on Windows, these exact instructions won't quite work unless you're using WSL2, which is like the Windows subsystem for Linux. But what you can do if you just have Windows without WSL2, there's a little section in the document here for how to install. We do ship a helix.exe for Windows. And so you can open the terminal app and run these commands. And then you can sort of translate these export commands, which are bash format, into these env commands, which are PowerShell format. So yeah, feel free to like click and expand this section in the document if you're on Windows and don't have WSL2. So let's see a couple of things that you can do with the CLI. So the first one that you can do is, let's go into this testing GenAI repo. Just make sure I'm up to date. Actually, I'll just to keep it simple to begin with, I'll write let me just paste you a helix.yaml. So what you can do is you can go into one of your apps. So remember, go to the home page and then AI-powered apps here. And you can go into one of your apps. And then under the developers tab, and very occasionally you might need to reload the page there. But under the developers tab, you can expand this and you can see that the AI app that you've created is actually represented as a YAML file. And so what we can do here is we can copy this comedian to the clipboard, and we can say comedian.yaml, use your text editor of choice to paste that into a file. And then you can do helix apply -f on comedian.yaml. And if you're familiar with Kubernetes at all, you'll find this apply command comes very naturally. It basically means like install or update. That's what apply means. It's this idea of a sort of declarative configuration. So you can just continuously keep the application up to date. And then you can use kind of CI/CD tools. So that Helix apply will have gone and updated the comedian here under the App Store. So you can go and see we've got this comedian here. And for example, I could go and use a slightly different version, which I've got in this repo. So this is also linked to in the docs. So if you look at the sample repo, go to this testing GenAI repo. Feel free to clone this repo, and then you can get access to all of the same examples that I'm showing you here. So let's grab. Let's just apply this other comedian.yaml, which has just got a few other fields filled in. So we can do helix apply -f of this version of the comedian. And then you'll see that this app has been updated to include pictures, basically. And so here we have, we've styled the comedian as one of my favorite comedians, Bill Hicks, and so we can go in and edit that app. So I'm just going to make a quick change. So don't look. So yeah, here we've made just a little quick change to the comedian, and I'm going to apply that again. So now I can say hey, and the comedian responds with hey back at you. But what we can additionally do now that we've got this YAML file is that we can write out some tests. So just like you write tests when you're doing software engineering, you can also test your GenAI applications. And you can do that by, for a given assistant, so apps contain a set of assistants. This one just has one. For this given assistant, you can say, my test is that I always want the system to tell a joke. So every time you interact with the system, or for example, if you start a new session and then prompt it with hey, then the expected output must match this, which in this case is saying like if you interact with the app and say hey, then it must return a joke, and it must be an actual joke. So we can start by actually running the test. So helix test-f on the comedian will run through and test all of them. And then that will load in the browser as well. And then you can see here that the response does not contain a joke, but rather a casual greeting and an invitation to chat. So we failed the test automatically there. And what the interesting thing here is that we've used another large language model to grade or like to test whether the response matches what the user requested. And we just give it a pass or fail grade. So, I mean, that's pretty cool because in the same place, we can define kind of what data sources the app has, which APIs it can integrate with, what instructions it has for how it should operate, and those tests that you can use to ensure the quality of that application over time. So yeah, you can put those kind of all in the same place in this one version controlled YAML file. So the next the challenge in this workshop is to try and make the comedian start telling jokes on every interaction. So I'm just going to take a break for a second. And if you're following along at home with the workshop, then you can actually try editing your comedian.yaml and try and change the system prompt to make the comedian actually tell a joke on every interaction. And my clue there is just use normal English. Tell the comedian what you want it to do, and then it will do it most of the time. So I'll just pause for a second so people can have a go at that. Okay, cool. So I will now give you the answer. So the answer is that if you want the comedian to tell you a joke on every interaction, you just tell it to tell you a joke. So for example, tell me a joke on every interaction should do the job. And so now we can, even before we commit that change, we can test it against the Helix deployment. And we can see what the results are. Yeah, it passed. And it says the response contains a joke, specifically a play on words with mugged, referring to both a coffee mug and a robbery. So Llama 3 took the liberty of even explaining the joke for us in that eval, which is very kind of it. But yeah, so you can see that we're now able, this is kind of a basic framework for building GenAI applications and being able to test them automatically in your CI system. So let's see what's next. So now what we can do is let's do the CI part. And in fact, we'll do a basic version of CD as well. So CI stands for continuous integration, and it's this idea that with software, you want to have tests that run alongside your code, so that every time you change your code, you can check that maybe 100 different cases of like how the software can be used still works. And it's a way of like catching bugs before they get shipped to production. And by writing tests for your language models as well, for your applications built on top of LLMs, then you can do that same thing. You can catch bugs before they hit production and before they affect users. So I'll just show you quickly kind of how you configure the repo in GitHub, because we have a GitHub workflow here. Well, the first thing I'll say is that if you want to try this at home, then you can go to this testing GenAI repo and you can fork the repo yourself. And then, yeah, if you fork it, then that makes it easy because you are able then to see, you're then able to configure you're then able to configure the settings for GitHub Actions. So we'll just use GitHub Actions for this example. It's also easy enough to configure with GitLab or Jenkins or whatever CI system you're using. So let's go and have a look at that GitHub action. There's a helix.yaml in here. What you can see is that we've defined the URL of your Helix deployment, an API key for it, and then commands to install the Helix CLI to test the app. And this one's using the exchange rates app. And then post a comment on the pull request with the summary of the test results. And then finally, if this is a push to the main branch, I think, yeah, we run on pushes to the main branch and pull requests into the main branch. If it's a push to the main branch, like a merge into the main branch, then if the test is successful, then we also deploy the application to production. So that's the sort of continuous delivery part. So you can be updating your helix.yaml on your main branch via pull requests. You can test changes in the pull request, and then if the pull request is green and you merge it to the main branch, then it's automatically going to deploy that change to production. And you're going to be safe in the knowledge that all of the cases you listed in your evals are still passing because we tested them. So the way you configure GitHub Actions is you just go into the settings for that repo, and all we need to do is give it a couple of secrets and variables. So the first under Actions, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these old ones. I just need to very quickly use my auth key. My two-factor auth. So I'll just pull that up here. And I'm going to clear up the variable as well. And so what you can do then is go into your Helix deployment and again go into account and API and grab that URL from here. That's going to be your Helix URL. And the URL needs to go into variables, which is a new repository variable. Helix underscore URL takes the value of that link to your private deployment. And then if you go to secrets, you can add a new repository secret, which is similarly the Helix API key. So I'm going to copy paste the key and I'm going to call it Helix API key. And I'm going to paste that in, add that secret. And now my repo is configured to point to that specific Helix deployment that I just created, like at the start of the workshop. So let's see. I'm going to remind myself of what I did last time. Okay, yeah. So this was a funny change that I made. So and then I'm going to show you how basically to to break the thing and then to make a pull request to fix it. So let me just quickly make a record here of something else. So I'm going to go in and so I've got this exchange rates app. Let me start by well, actually, just let me start by breaking it. So the way that you break it is that you tell the app to just always say the word fish and not actually do what it's meant to do, which is a pretty coarse-grained way of breaking the app. But it's also, I don't know, I think it's slightly funny. Maybe I just have a weird sense of humor. But if we go in here, and then this response success template is like how the LLM is meant to summarize the response from the API back to the user. And so I'm going to be very naughty and commit this breaking change directly to the main branch because I want to demonstrate how we can then make a pull request to show fixing the issue on the main branch. So we just made a change to the main branch. We can see those tests are running. And excellent, the test is failing. I don't normally say that, but in this case, we want the test to fail so that we can fix it. So here, yeah, we can see, yeah, the app is just saying fish over and over again. It's like, oh, what's the exchange rate? It's fish. Stupid app. So let's make a pull request that fixes that problem. So if we pull in the latest version of the code, we'll see that exchange-rates.yaml is currently well, it got updated. We know that we broke it, and so what we can do, well, actually, let's be good developers now. Put our good programmer hat on, and we'll go and make our change in a new branch, and we'll say the branch should be called like fix fish issue, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the exchange rates YAML, and instead of always say the word fish, only that, nothing else, we can put back the previous prompt that was in here, and so what that does is tell the LLM to present the key information in a concise manner and perform any actions requested by the user, include relevant details, and so on. Don't mention technical terms because the LLM is summarizing a response back from an API, but you don't want the user to be told a bunch of stuff about APIs. They just want to know about the exchange rate. And then there's some other stuff in here about like filtering out irrelevant currency information. And so all of these prompts are defined in the YAML file for like dealing with these different parts of the API interaction. So let's see. That's our diff. Let's start by testing the exchange rates app. Before we even commit anything, we can test whether the app is working. And it is now, so that's good. So the change that we've got here looks good. So now we can do a commit. But of course, we should get our pull request reviewed by the team, and we should make sure everything is passing. Make sure we didn't regress a different change with our fix. So we can say switch back to working prompt. And we can push that. And then if we go into the CI system, we'll be able to see that we've got a new pull request, or rather we've got a new branch. So we can make a new pull request from that branch. And then I think as soon as we open the pull request, because GitHub Actions is configured to test on PR rather than test on every branch, we're going to, it's going to start running those tests. And then so we can see, well, did this make the system any better? And it did. That's great. We now have passing tests. So we can go and look at the test report. And we can see that that's all green. And almost more importantly, we can see kind of in GitHub that pull request has a green tick next to it. Yay! And we also got a test result summary in the GitHub pull request kind of comments section. So obviously now I should really go and get a colleague to go and review this PR, but we don't quite have time for that. So I'm going to go ahead and merge it. And then as soon as that merge happens, you can see that it's going to run a new CI pipeline on the main branch and apply this declarative configuration that we've been iterating on into production. Because remember, every merge to the main branch will automatically get deployed. So first it gets tested, and then it gets deployed. And so there we use that helix apply-f command to deploy that exchange rates app. And now if we go into the app in here, the exchange rates app, we can say, what is the current euro to sterling rate? And it doesn't say fish. Instead, it goes and makes an API call to go and do that. So yeah, everything I've showed you is here in the document. So feel free to either try this yourself or come back to this later. And yeah, so that's kind of an introduction to testing and CI for GenAI and GenAI apps. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. The last thing I'll say is please let us know, like in the comments section or on Discord or on Slack, whatever your preferred mechanism is. What would you like to see kind of in future workshops? There's one thing that we're working on, which is making it easy to workshop Kubernetes deployments. So if you're interested in Kubernetes, please let us know. And the idea with that is that actually I can probably show you here. One of the slides actually is is this architecture. It's kind of reference architecture with Kubernetes, where you can have users testing things on their branches and then doing testing in GitHub Actions. But if you're using Kubernetes, you can actually treat this version controlled YAML. Like if we go back to this exchange rates app, well, I mean, you saw it in the text editor as well, but the YAML file is all here. This YAML file is actually a valid CRD, which is a custom resource definition in Kubernetes. Helix doesn't depend on Kubernetes, and you can use it perfectly fine just with Docker or whatever container runtime you like. But if you do plug it into Kubernetes, then you can also use the Helix Kubernetes operator, and the operator can watch for these CRDs being updated, and then automatically apply those changes to the Helix deployment that can also be running in Kubernetes. So yeah, this way you can integrate with tools that you might be using, like Flux, which is a really great tool for doing GitOps basically, and like automatically reconciling changes to a CRD, and then Flux can be watching the Git repo and then automatically update changes to the application. So yeah, let us know if you're interested in Kubernetes as a topic, or if there are other suggestions. Then feel free to mention those. And yes, we also offer private workshops, or if you're interested in learning more about Helix in general, you want a demo, or you want to talk about your use case, then please do drop me a note. Just shoot an email to luke@helix.ml, and I'd be very happy to set up a private workshop, or just chat about use cases and private GenAI that doesn't send data out of your firewall, and allows you to plug in all of these capabilities. So yeah, thank you for coming. We've got a bit of time actually now, so if people have questions, please either just come off mute on Zoom or if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or X, then I think I can see comments that you leave. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions now. Let me just find that window. Okay, well, so far no questions. Just give it another minute. And just a reminder, this doc, if you want to follow along at home, the URL for this is bit.ly/testing-GenAI. Okay, no questions then. So thank you for coming along. Yeah, keep an eye out. We'll be posting future workshops on the link for that is this one here. And I'll just put that up here as well. So keep an eye on this link if you want to join a future workshop. We'll be posting them there. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and hope some of you got to follow along at home. Thanks very much. Bye.